Hello everybody, my name is April. That's my cat Miso. This is my cat Cowboy. My cat Zero is underneath the bed right now. The last video that I uploaded was a recap and ranking of all of the books that I read in the year of 2025. One of the books that I ranked lowest that year was a book called Fair Play by Louise Hegarty. Now, I had first read this book in 2025 and I gave it the 1 star, and that's what I discussed in my ranking video. But I wanted to go through a little bit deeper and give this book like a little bit of a second chance just to see maybe if I was wrong. And I was not wrong. I think that my 1 star rating last year still holds up now in 2026 with a brand new fresh set of eyes on the book. Consider this video to be a bit of a I read this so that you didn't have to. This is how serious it is, okay? I have my iPad here with my notes. So if you see me on my phone and you think I'm playing games on my phone,
I'm not playing on my phone, I'm taking care of business.
I had first read Fair Play by Louise Hegarty in 2025, obviously. At the time, I felt awful giving it that 1 star rating because it is a debut novel from Hegarty. Unfortunately, as we're well aware, reviews and ratings can obviously impact the sales and success of authors. Even though I am a small voice with a very small reach, my 1 star is still going to contribute to the overall 2.77 star Goodreads rating that this book has. And as much as we like to pretend that like the Goodreads ratings shouldn't mean anything to you when you choose what book to read next, let's be realistic. Like, a lot of people still use these kind of apps and these platforms to choose their next book. So I felt bad about giving it that 1 star review. At the time when I read this book as well, I had borrowed it from my library. So like, not only was I going to be rating it 1 star and like rating it poorly, I wasn't even buying the book and contributing to Louise Hegarty's sales. So like, I felt even worse. Honestly, my overall thoughts when I first read that book is that I thought it was an interesting concept, but I just don't think that it was executed well. And I think I said this in my ranking video. I think that this was a very ambitious kind of take on this kind of story for a first-time author. And I think that realistically, it could have been something that a more practiced author could have executed better. I want to say that I contribute to the arts, and I want to say that I also contribute to the future successes of Louise Hegarty. I would be interested to see what she's able to write next. My cat is literally going crazy and doing laps of the house right now. Can you hear that? I went ahead and I purchased my very own copy of this book. This is a hardcover book as well. So hello, pretty penny. And so because I've spent money on this book, I feel like I have been given a pass to be able to critique the shit out of this book while giving you a recap on this book. Just going into like my first impressions of the book, when I first read it, I read it as an ebook and I borrowed it from my library. The ebook copy that I had, it had this same cover. The color combination is gorgeous, and the theming of like a playing card, I thought that that was so interesting. Like, I know that I shouldn't be judging a book by its cover, but unfortunately that's what I did. So when I borrowed it from my library, this is the blurb that it had on its little page. I'm going to read it verbatim. A locked room, a hidden life. Abigail and her brother Benjamin have always been close. To celebrate his birthday, Abigail hires a grand old house and gathers their friends together for a murder mystery party. As the night goes on, they drink too much and play games. Relationships are forged, consolidated, or frayed. Someone kisses someone they shouldn't. Someone else's heart is broken. In the morning, everyone wakes up. Except Benjamin. Suddenly, everything is not quite what it seems. An eminent detective arrives, determined to find Benjamin's killer. The house now has a butler, a gardener, a housekeeper. This is a locked room mystery, and everyone is a suspect. As Abigail attempts to fathom her brother's unexpected death in a world that has been turned upside down, she begins to wonder whether perhaps the true mystery might have been his life. Okay, firstly, if that blurb piques your interest at all, I please endeavor you to read this book for yourself and come to your own sort of conclusions. And then, you can come back to this video and tell me how my opinions right now are completely wrong. But it's opinions based. Secondly, for me, this blurb absolutely scratched an itch, and it like intrigued me all the more. I am like not super familiar with classic murder mystery novels. Like, I've never read anything by like Agatha Christie. I've never read any of the Sherlock Holmes kind of stuff. The only sort of exposure that I have to those stories is like the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock movies. And then I'd say like the only other exposure that I have to Agatha Christie kind of stories is one, that fucking Wasp episode of Doctor Who. If you know, you know, where Agatha Christie is a character in the episode.
There's a murder, a mystery, and Agatha Christie.
Thrillers in the chase, never in the capture.
There's nowhere to run.
And aside from that, I just know the Kenneth Branagh Poirot movies.
And enough champagne to fill the Nile.
Apart from those two things, my only other kind of recent exposure would have been the Knives Out movies by Rian Johnson. This book was released in April 2025, and Wake Up Dead Man wasn't released at that time, and Glass Onion would have been the most recent movie that was out at the time. If you've seen Glass Onion, you would know that it also features a murder mystery party that goes wrong. So Fair Play being blurbed as this, I was like immediately interested, and I had my expectations set at like a certain level. Once I had my physical copy of Fair Play, the design aspects of it go like a little bit further with having a physical one. It had the same cover as the digital version. On the back, it had that similar design, except now it's a queen playing card and she's upside down. So, you know, it made me think of what would the symbolism be of these two pieces of art, whether or not the king is supposed to represent Benjamin in our story. Queen is supposed to then represent Abigail, but the queen is upside down. So like, what does that mean about Abigail? Is she upside down? Not quite right. Like, you know, it makes you think. When we take off the dust cover, it's just like a simple white book, but she has a very beautiful like spine, I guess. These inside pages, beautiful hot pink. It has a floor plan of the ground floor, as well as like these little minimal illustrations. And then same with the back pages as well. Again, same sort of hot pink. It's the first floor now. Additionally, the blurb of the two books is different as well. I will put like both blurbs on the screen somewhere, but some key differences is that instead of saying a locked room, a hidden mystery, it now says, this is a murder mystery. This is a story about love. Or is it? I think the best part about the blurb on the physical copy is that at the end, it is changed to say, Fair Play is the puzzle box story of two competing tales that uncover the real truth of life and the terrifying mystery of grief. I think that the blurb in the physical copy of this book does give it a better indication of what this book is actually going to be about compared to the blurb that I had originally seen when I had got this book from my library. Kind of set my expectations at a level where this book just was not able to meet those expectations. So it does kind of make me question, I guess, the marketing decisions, you know, what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to publishing the books and everything like that. It makes me go, Sorry, I had to put away my iPad because it was a little bit too big, a little bit too heavy for my little lady wrists. So instead, I have Puta right here, and I will most likely be reading my note. Okay, first, I will go over a quick little recap of part 1 of this book. Part 1, it's only going to be like the first 30 pages or so of the book. Everything that we learn in the blurb is going to happen in part 1. So if you do still have interest in reading this book, you can listen to this part and there's not going to be any spoilers for you. When we do get to the actual spoilers, I will tell you, so it's okay. The very first page of this book is a party invitation, and it's asking the guest to come celebrate Benjamin's birthday and celebrate New Year's by coming to a murder mystery party held on New Year's Eve. Benjamin's, I think, 33rd birthday falls on New Year's Day on January 1st, so it's going to be like a combination New Year's Eve birthday party together. The location that's listed on this invitation is a place called Yew Tree House, and the theme is Jazz Age Detective. The RSVPs are to be sent to Abigail, who is Benjamin's sister, and she is the one who has organized this whole party. The next page we get is Abigail getting ready for this party. So she's doing like her whole morning routine, and it's supposed to basically show us that Abigail is type A. If not type A, then definitely high strung. So in an opening paragraph that is just one long run-on sentence, we hear that she wakes up at 7 a.m, she stretches, does 10 minutes of meditation, she showers, dresses, does skincare, makeup, she makes her breakfast, puts her suitcase and party supplies, which she packed the night before, into the car, and she then checks her to-do list, and she checks maps for the way to the bakery, which she ordered Benjamin's birthday cake from, and it'll take her 28 minutes to get there. This is all just one long sentence, okay? And even though she knows it's going to take her 28 minutes, she still gets to the bakery a couple minutes before they open. This opening paragraph is basically supposed to, I guess, have us focus on the fact that Abigail is very routine-based, very regimented, I guess. And frankly, when I had read this book the first time, I should have clocked it from the fucking jump. I should have known that the blurb was going to be misleading to me, because what kind of opening sentence or opening page to a murder mystery book is that? Boo boo the fool. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. The second time around that I read this. Idiot, okay? Make me into a clown. Whatever. She obviously picks up the cake from the bakery that she arrived to a little bit early. She travels to the countryside to the Yew Tree House, which is this mansion that she found on Airbnb. Owners of the Yew Tree House, they give her a tour and they give her like this overall history of the house itself. They then drive off in their car. They're going to be completely off property during this party. It's not as if they're like staying in like a little house on the property that's close to Yew Tree House while guests are there. They're completely gone. Abigail then starts getting ready for the party by prepping any food, decorating. She's also hiding clues for the upcoming murder mystery party game that they're going to have later that night. I will say on the first page of the book, it says that Abigail says that she's the organizer of the group, a role that she both enjoys and resents in equal measure. And then on the 5th page, it says she hopes that everyone appreciates all the work she put in. She very much wants to impress them. Okay, so like, do you like hosting and organizing parties and putting it all together and being impressive to other people? Or do you resent that you have to put together these parties? Which one is it? Okay, I'm just going to get this out of the way now. I don't like Abigail. Everything that I say furthermore about Abigail and any parts that I read that are supposed to be like in her voice, it's going to be like this. I find Abigail to be an insufferable character. I will tell you more about it as we go further along, but like, trust me, she's a character. Abigail, she's finished prepping all the stuff and she's waiting for the other guests to arrive. The invitations ask for the guests to arrive at 2 p.m. And even though Abigail knew they would be late, she is still disappointed when they fail to show at the appointed time. As an aside, if you have friends that are consistently late, you have to talk to them. If you are feeling consistently let down by them and by the fact that they are constantly late, you have to communicate the fact that you feel, I don't know, disrespected by the fact that they are late. You find it to be disrespectful of your time that when they show up late, like you need to tell them that that is how you feel. You either have to stress to them that you have found it disrespectful, that they're constantly late and they're always letting you down in this way, or you have to start giving them fake times on their invitations. If Abigail is describing herself as the organizer of the group, I would assume that she has needed to organize many events in the past. This is not the first murder mystery party that this group of friends have had, okay? I would assume that she would then know her friends' punctuality or lack thereof. So she should have either communicated her feelings by now, or she should have adapted her way of inviting them to places to sort of suit them. If she needs them there at 2, she should put on the invitation to get there at 1. That way, when they're late and they show up at 2, guess what? They're still technically on time. Yes, it's a bit of like a bad way to go about it, but if you've already tried to communicate with them that they're not showing up on time, then you have to resort to these deceptive measures in order to get them there, okay? Get it together, Abigail. The first person to actually arrive at 2:30 is Barbara. She works with Benjamin and she doesn't know anyone else there. She's only met with Abigail like once or twice in the past, but she hasn't met any of the other guests. And her goal with coming there at 2:30, she was hoping that she would avoid any sort of like awkward one-on-one time by being late to the function. But unfortunately, Barbara doesn't know these other people. She doesn't know that they're consistently late. So she thought that 2:30 was going to be late enough, but it wasn't late enough for this group of people that she doesn't know. Also, I think I will put my fan casts of whichever characters on the screen. I will say, although I don't like the character of Abigail, for reasons I'll get into later, my fan cast for Abigail is Daisy Edgar Jones. My other fan cast for Barbara is going to be Ella Purnell, but specifically Ella Purnell as Sweet Pea in the show Sweet Pea. The next people that arrive to the house, it doesn't specify what time they show up. The next people that arrive are Cormac, Olivia, and Stephen. Cormac went to university with Benjamin, and Cormac and Olivia are a couple, and they've been together for around 3 years. Despite being such like a steady, long-lasting couple in this friend group, Olivia still feels as if she is an outsider to this friend group, and it's specifically noted that Olivia is pleased that Barbara's there because it means that Olivia is no longer the most new person of that group. Barbara is going to be the new person who is like the outsider of the group, and Olivia doesn't have to feel so like insecure about her place. Because Cormac and Olivia are a couple, Abigail has given them the bigger bedroom with an ensuite bathroom just so that they can sort of have that space together. Just based on the names of the couple, my fan cast for Cormac and Olivia is John Mulaney and Olivia Munn. The other person that arrived at the same time as them was Stephen. Stephen has known Benjamin and Abigail since they were kids. Abigail says that she has had a schoolgirl crush on him, but she hoped that she had grown out of it. The only problem is that Stephen has a girlfriend. Oh yeah, an unnamed Polish girlfriend who is visiting family in Poland for the holiday period, so she's not in attendance at this party. If I may again talk my shit immediately, Abigail says that she is happy when Stephen says his partner has gone to Poland. What do you mean that Abigail is happy? That's present tense. Look, that's my cat. Sorry, I should have pointed this out. This is Zero. Very rare little guy. Abigail says that she is happy when Stephen says that his partner has gone to Poland. Not was, is. So present tense. So Stephen has just told her that his partner isn't coming. I feel like Abigail should already know that the partner is not coming and that Abigail shouldn't be happy. She should have been happy to learn that. Abigail should already know that. If Abigail is super close with her brother Benjamin and Benjamin is best friends with Stephen, 1, she should know then that Stephen has a partner. 2, she should know to invite his partner. And 3, if I'm consistently being told that this character is the group organizer, this character would then be harassing these people about RSVPs. She would want to be confirming the number of guests for the booking of the house itself. She would be wanting to have that confirmation of the guests as well to then confirm the room layouts that she has organized for all the guests. She would want to know how much food to bring and how much food to accommodate for each of the guests. So what do you mean that she is only just learning that the girlfriend isn't coming and that the girlfriend is in Poland for Christmas? If you were going to give me this one main character trait, that this character is supposed to be type A and the group organizer, then stick to your f***ing guns, bro. This feels like completely out of character for what you're telling me this character is supposed to be. Whatever. Abigail shows Stephen to like this room that she has like put aside for him. It's like a special room that has like a really nice view out of the window, and it also has a painted mural of the house. So Stephen like sits back on the bed and he's like, oh my god, Abigail, you did such a good job with finding this place. Like, it literally looks so good. And Abigail says, I haven't seen you in so long. To which Stephen says, I know, you know, we should organize more stuff in the new year with just the two of us or with Benjamin or whatever. What about your Polish girlfriend, sir? Stephen then says, oh, let me show you my costume for the murder mystery party tonight. And he pulls out a deerstalker hat, which is like the Sherlock Holmes hat. And Abigail says, well, actually, Sherlock never wore that in their books. That was only for the movies. Okay. Interesting. Put maybe like a little pin in that. Just put a pin in that. I'll come back to it, maybe. The last group of people to arrive is then Declan, Margaret, and the birthday boy himself, Benjamin. Declan, we'll go over him. He has known Benjamin since they were kids. Abigail doesn't know why Benjamin is still friends with Declan. Over the years, they've been slowly drifting apart. The only person who doesn't realize that drift is Declan himself. Although he's invited to events during the year, it has been a long time since he made sense with the people in this room. If Abigail is the group organizer, why doesn't she just not invite Declan if she has such a problem and she thinks that he's like such a weirdo and that he doesn't suit the aesthetic of this friend group or whatever? Why does she invite him? Why does she allow him to be invited if she is the organizer of these events? Shut up, Abigail, bro. Of course, Declan doesn't realize that he's drifting away from his friends. He is still being invited to these parties, which are taking place at overnight stays at an Airbnb. If I am being invited to the Airbnb, I would think I'm close friends with those people. You don't just like go to an Airbnb with people that you're not close with. The reason why Abigail has like a problem with him is that he's like, I guess, immature. He makes stupid jokes. He drinks to excess and he has a bit of a gambling problem, okay? Margaret, on the other hand, she is a gorgeous redhead. She dated Benjamin in university, and although it didn't work out romantically, they've remained close friends ever since. And Benjamin is Benjamin. Abigail shows Declan, Margaret, Benjamin to their rooms. She gives the main bedroom to Benjamin because it's his birthday, and that room has balcony access and it has its own ensuite bathroom. And Declan also follows them into the main room because he thought that Benj would want him to share a room, kind of like a sleepover, like the old times. And Abigail is like, no, you're next door. Okay, they go downstairs and they have like some more nibbles and champagne, and then they decide to go on a walk around the ground where they come across the ruins of like an old church and a graveyard, an illustration of which is included on the back inside cover of the book. But don't worry, because this graveyard amounts to nothing, okay? It's not relevant to anything further in the book. Forget about it. Once they get back from their walk, they start getting celebrations going and people start changing into their costumes. Abigail tells us that the New Year's parties are always themed, though Abigail isn't too strict. In the past, it could be country house chic or Prohibition era New York. This year, it is jazz age detective. US Prohibition started in the 1920s. The jazz age is a term that was coined by F. Scott Fitzgerald to describe the 1920s. If you're saying that those two themes are like two completely separate themes, that feels kind of, I don't know, redundant to me. Unless you were speaking like specifically to like fashion historians or like a historian, I guess, in general, I don't expect a layperson to know the differences in clothes to wear between like a Prohibition era New York costume party and a jazz age detective costume party. The regular everyday man hearing about the jazz age would think ladies in flapper dresses and men in tailored suits and fedoras. If I were to also say Prohibition era New York themed party, I would think ladies in flapper dresses, men in tailored suits and fedoras. Like, those are the two same things. If I were to throw a party one year and have it be Parisian themed, okay, I would expect people to wear berets, wear a striped shirt, have long cigarette, and maybe long bread roll, okay? If the next year I were to then have a French themed party, I would expect my guests to reuse those same costumes, okay? Despite the fact that we're being told that Abigail is the group organizer and that she's a great organizer and she wants people to be impressed by her skills, I kind of doubt how skilled at this Abigail actually is, because she's just kind of recycling the themes. Once everyone is changed into their costumes, which aren't the same costumes that they wore at the last party, don't worry guys, they're different. They're different. Abigail makes note that Cormac, Stephen, and Benjamin are wearing suits, but Declan is still wearing his trainers. She herself is wearing a flapper dress, Margaret is wearing a floor-length backless dress, and Barbara and Olivia are only wearing modern cocktail dresses. But she's not strict on theming, like it doesn't matter. The murder mystery game itself then begins around 8 p.m. They are given an envelope with a character card in it, giving them like information on their roles and the game instructions. I feel like I'm taking a moment to pause a lot throughout this little recap, and I'm not really saying that much about the actual events of this party. I hate the instruction card because it feels so rude and condescending. It says on this card, You should know the situation by now, but for anyone new to this is how it works. You have each been assigned a specific role to play. The only person at this party who is new to this game is Barbara. So this being like the opening sentence and being on everyone's card is completely unnecessary, and it singles her out in the group. Additionally, if we think about the fact that Olivia has said that she feels still like an outsider of this friend group, if she's so insecure about her place in the group, if I were Olivia, if I read a line like that, I myself would feel singled out as well. And I would feel like, oh shit, Abigail hates me. I think it's also just like not a good way to open the instructions of a game. Could you imagine if Monopoly or like Uno had their instruction booklet say, you should already know how to play this? And then the instruction card itself, it ends with the line, any questions, ask Abigail. I don't know if I want to ask Abigail any questions because apparently I should already know. Stephen's character in the game is the victim of the murder, and because he's the victim, rather than just having him lay there and like do nothing, he becomes the detective of the game itself so that he still has something to do. Now, because Abigail has basically like written the story, she's not the one like playing the game itself, but she's able to push people in the right directions, and she'll be like, oh, did anyone check the credenza? Declan specifically asks her, how long's this gonna take, Ab? And she's like, oh, get into the spirit of things, Declan. You might even end up solving it. And she specifically notes that she hates when he calls her Ab. Put a pin in that. I have a pin in here about the deerstalker hat, and I have a pin in here about she hates when he calls her Ab. The game then wraps up in around 2 hours, where it's revealed that Benjamin's character killed Stephen's character. À tout brute. Now, the murder mystery aspect of this book that I thought I was getting, based on the blurb that I read, it's now over. And if you think that I kind of like glossed over parts of the party, part of the game, like I didn't. That's pretty much all that we get. We don't even get to see like an explanation of the murder mystery game that they've played either. Like if you think of Glass Onion, spoiler alert for Glass Onion, but when Benoit Blanc like first sits down at that dinner table and Benoit Blanc like clocks Edward Norton's shit and is like, boom, 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 this is what's going to happen. I've noticed this all throughout the day. And he like ruins the party. We don't get that kind of like explanation of what actually happened during this murder mystery party, okay? We, as the reader, are not clued in to it. So the murder mystery that I thought I was being promised based on the blurb that I read and the blurb that like kind of hooked me and pulled me in, I'm not getting that? Oh, okay. Oh, and I'm only 30 pages into the book. Oh, okay. So like what exactly is going to be the next 240 pages? Okay, little rant about the game itself aside. We're still here at the party. The group themselves, they all drink some more, they talk some more, they play some board games, they listen to the fireworks, and they count down to midnight for New Year's. And they then bring out a cake for Benjamin because it's now officially his birthday. Yay! Declan passes out on the couch downstairs on like the ground floor in the living room. Cormac and Olivia, they head to bed, and then Barbara ends up going to bed. Margaret, Benjamin, Abigail, and Stephen, they stay downstairs, they talk and they drink some more. Abigail, Stephen, and Benjamin, they reminisce on their childhood and they tell fun little stories about Benjamin and Abigail's mum. Margaret says, oh, your mum sounds really nice. I wish I had met her. Margaret ends up going to bed, and then Benjamin eventually goes to bed. So downstairs, it's only Abigail and Stephen left. It's around like 2 or 3 a.m. Abigail is like, oh my God, I should probably clean up this party. And she says that in the hopes that Stephen will then feel guilty and he would start cleaning up with her. But Stephen is a normal person, and Stephen's like, it can wait until the morning. It is literally New Year's. Like, you don't need to clean up right now. We can go to bed. It'll be here in the morning. Relax. And she's like, no, I need to clean. She like insists on cleaning. Like she's just gonna tidy up this little bit. And he's like, dude, stop cleaning. And he grabs her wrist to try to like force her to stop. And he's like, oh my God, your skin's so cold. Let me warm you up. And he gives her his jacket. And she looks up at him. And they kiss. Throw caution to the wind. Who gives a about Polish girlfriend now? Thankfully, though, nothing more happens. And Abigail washes her face despite how like tired and drunk she is, and she goes to bed. Abigail's alarm then goes off before dawn, and she gets up, she goes downstairs to start preparing breakfast. She sees that Declan is still passed out on the couch, and she hopes that he doesn't wake up in time for breakfast. People then start waking up and they start coming downstairs for breakfast, except for Benjamin. Stephen goes up to knock on his door, but he doesn't answer and the door is locked from the inside. And so as a group, they're like, whatever, we'll let him sleep in for a little bit more because it's his birthday. He's a birthday boy. He can sleep in. Have a little sleep in as a treat. It's then unclear on exactly like how much time has passed, whether or not this is after like 15 minutes or after an hour, when they decide Benjamin has slept in long enough and they decide that he needs to be woken up. Benjamin isn't answering the door and his room is locked. So they're calling out to him through the door. They're trying to knock on it and everything like that. Abigail is trying to call him on his phone to help, try to see if the phone ringing is going to jog him into consciousness. But Abigail just keeps getting his voicemail. Hi, this is Ben. And she doesn't like it when he calls himself Ben. That's what other people call him. That's not his name. Okay, let's take that. Let's also put a pin in that. Now, as a group, they then decide that this door needs to be busted down. There is no mention of looking for a key or contacting the owner of the house. They all just decide on busting down the door. In an Airbnb, in an antique home, would somebody please consider the fees and the fact that you would be locked out of Airbnb usage for in 6 months probably if you cause that kind of damage? Have we lost all sense? There also hasn't been any sort of threats to anyone's life or anything like that, so there's nothing within the vibe of the book to tell us that we would suspect that he's dead on the inside. But surprise, surprise, when we bust down the door, yeah, he's dead on the inside. There's nothing in the lead up to have this sort of over the top reaction to the fact that he's just not answering his phone, he's not waking up. Someone please just contact the owner to get a key. What do you mean? Anyway, Benjamin wasn't answering the door because he is dead. Now, that little recap was all of part 1. That was 36 pages of a 279 page book. The rest of the book, majority, is going to be part 2 of the book. And there's a couple of pages at the end, which is part 3, which is, hello, just call it an epilogue. Why are you calling it a part? Before I go further into spoilers, let me pull out the pins here, okay? I will take out this pin here about the names. None of these characters in this book use nicknames, and that is so odd to me. Abigail, she has mentioned that she does not like it when Declan says Benj or calls her Ab, and she doesn't like it when her own brother calls himself Ben in his voicemail because that's what other people call him. But it's clear that he also calls himself Ben. Otherwise, why would he allow anyone who's calling him, strangers, potential work clients, friends, family, why would he include that in his voicemail if he doesn't want those people to call him Ben? If he himself was insisting that he is called Benjamin, then his voicemail would say, hi, you've reached Benjamin. I do not get the impression that he is so heavily influenced by other people that he feels this incessant need to call himself Ben in his voicemail. He called himself Ben in his voicemail because he is fine with being called Ben. It's just so strange to me that Abigail is so protective over his government name. All of the other characters as well, they all have names that can be easily shortened. So Abigail, Abby, Stephen, Steve, Benjamin, Ben, Benji, Benj, whatever. Margaret can be Marge or Maggie or Peggy. You're telling me that a gorgeous redhead woman named Maggie or Peggy, you're not gonna sell your soul for one night with a gorgeous woman named Maggie who's redheaded? Cormac, I guess it's not a name that I'm super familiar with. I don't have any friends who are named Cormac, but that could easily be shortened down to Mac. Olivia can easily be shortened down to Liv, Livy, and then Barbara can be Barb, Barbie. It takes me out of the world and out of any of the dialogue that's being said between any of these characters, because I just cannot believe that any sort of like long-standing friendship group is going to always use the full government names with everybody in that friendship group. It would realistically only make sense for these people to use Barbara's full name, because if this is the first time that most of these people have met Barbara, then they won't feel comfortable enough with calling her a nickname or giving her a shortened name. It would make sense that they'll say, oh, hi, Abby. Hi, Steve. Hi, Ben. Oh, hello, Barbara. Also, like another thing, if Olivia is said to be feeling like she is an outsider to the group, it would be like such an easy way to build the characterization of that by having all of these other characters use nicknames with each other, use the shortened versions of each other's names, but still call Olivia. If they refuse to call her Liv or anything like that, it would still show that she is like that kind of outsider to the friend group, while Cormac is being called Mac and Margaret is being called Maggie. Everyone else is getting like a shortened version of their name. If Olivia is still being called Olivia, it means that everyone else still feels uncomfortable around her, and she has that right to feel like an outsider. It would add to the world, people. Additionally, I'm not done with this name thing. This book is supposed to be set in Ireland, okay? Maybe I'm just saying this because Sydney, Australia tends to have like Irish people who've like immigrated or are on here on like working visas or anything like that. I feel like Irish humor and Australian culture humor are very similar. You're telling me that a guy named Declan isn't going to have his name shortened down to Deck, and then if he is characterized as this immature guy, a bit of a larrikin, a bit of a sleazebag, his friends aren't then going to change Deck into Dick? I don't even know these people, and these people are fake. But like, I am able to make these connections of like the nicknames that you can make for a friend who is in the group. You could then end up calling him like Deckhead, because it's like head, but Deckhead. And if I don't like Declan in this friend group, if I call him Deckhead, in my mind, I am slyly giving him an insult. But in his mind, because he's so immature, he just sees that as a fun little like familiarity thing. The nicknames, having nicknames for a group of friends adds to that kind of world building and adds to that sort of familiarity that the characters are then supposed to have with each other. For all of these characters to use their full names with each other, at this point, Declan is the only believable character because he has known Abigail and Benjamin since he was 5 years old, and he feels comfortable with calling them Benj and Ab. From this point onwards, I will be calling these characters by the nicknames, by the shortened versions of their names, because I don't want to say that many syllables, okay? I'm not really sure whether or not this author, Louise Hegarty, has any actual siblings in real life. And frankly, it's not our business to know as readers. But the way that Abby and Ben are written, it seems as if the author has never met a pair of siblings ever. The way that she is like trying to show that Abby is so close to Benji by just having her be super protective of his government name, it doesn't feel like a real sort of like sibling bond. Like if you kind of think of like siblings where, you know, the younger sibling was unable to sort of pronounce their older sibling's name when they were a baby or something like that, and that name just kind of stuck with them throughout, you know, all of their childhood, and it stuck with them into adulthood. If Abby had a nickname like that for Benjamin that other people started using, if she said that she is uncomfortable with them using that sort of family nickname, that would be understandable. But for her to say that she's uncomfortable when people call him Ben, what do you mean? That's not what siblings do. Speaking personally, my partner is the eldest of 6 kids. Amongst many sort of like nicknames and inside jokes and everything like that he and his siblings all have together, they call the youngest sibling Gorga, based off of the Gorgonites from the 1998 movie Small Soldiers, because apparently she looked like Archer. Now, I've seen that movie. That movie scared me as a kid. I would never use that nickname to her because for me, I'm not connected to that joke. I didn't watch that movie with them. I didn't say, haha, that's what you look like. That's you. We're going to call you that now. I wasn't there for that. So if I were to start calling her that, it just feels mean when I do it. Alternatively, if I were to be too comfortable with calling her that, if I went too crazy with calling her Gorga, if I if I double down and I'm like, yeah, you definitely look like that. You still look like that. You blah, 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 blah. Like if I doubled down and started using that nickname in a way that's like clearly insulting to his sibling, I would expect my partner, any of his other siblings as well, to be like, hey, don't call her that. That's our nickname for her. Like I would expect that level of protectiveness over a nickname compared to the f***ing government name that they have. It's just such like a weird characterization of Abby. And it's also so weird that the other friends in the group don't use nicknames with each other. I think that that's just like poor writing. Not to say that the author doesn't know people, but maybe she doesn't know people. Guys, rant complete. Okay, I had to change over my memory card and I've been talking a lot based on just 36 pages of the book. I assume that the video is going to be around like this mark here, which is going to be crazy because I have 240 pages to kind of go over. Coming back to the novel, we have had the death of Ben, who has died inside of a locked room. Any one of these guests could be the culprit. And so the goal of part 2 is going to be for an eccentric investigator to solve Ben's death. Part 2 is my least favorite part of the book, and unfortunately it's the majority of the novel. In order for me to properly relay to you the problems of part 2, the problems with the mystery that I thought I was going to be getting based on the blurb, based on the marketing of the book, I need to give a major spoiler for the book. If you've made it to this point and you still want to read this book for yourself and, not have this part of the story spoiled, end this video because I have to give a major spoiler real quick. I will give you time to quickly leave the video, okay? If you're still here now, you might be okay with spoilers, but I hope that you are okay with trigger warnings, because trigger warning for self-exits. Ben died inside of a locked room. The investigator is not going to find a culprit for his murder because there hasn't been a murder. Ben has committed. If you're comfortable with proceeding with this video, the book doesn't go into any sort of details on method or anything like that, but unfortunately that is why he died. I will just go through sort of brief overview of part 2 as it's presented to us. Part 2, it starts with a paragraph quote from Don Quixote and a quote from an Agatha Christie novel that every murderer is probably somebody's old friend. Okay. The next page, we are given a cast of characters list introducing brand new characters and staff to the Yew Tree House, as well as providing new descriptions to the characters we've already met. For example, Maggie is no longer just Ben's ex-girlfriend from university. She's now his ex-fiancée, and she still wears the ring on a chain necklace. Steve knows that he's attractive and he always thinks he's the lead character in everything. Barb is no longer Ben's work friend, equal level colleague or anything like that. She now is specifically his secretary, and it is rumored that the secretary is sleeping with the boss. Liv and Mac are now engaged, and Liv was apparently a champion gymnast who lived in foster care and ran away to live with the circus. There's also a butler, a doctor, a police inspector, a maid, innkeepers, a psychic, a lord and a lady, a gardener, and our 2 investigators. We have August Bell, who is a little bit of Poirot, Holmes, and Inspector French, and Saka, who is a Watson. We are then also given 3 different set of rules for writing mystery stories. We are given T.S. Eliot's 5 rules, Father Knox has 10 rules, and S.S. Van Dyne has 20 rules. The rules, they don't really matter. They're basically just rules being if there's a mystery story, the culprit should not be a twin, the culprit should not be a character that we don't know, and I'm pretty sure that one of the rules is that it shouldn't be revealed to be a side. Failed already. We failed from the jump. The chapters in part 2 will all contain a little Bell and Saka interviewing any of the party guests and the house staff, and their goal is going to be to solve the mystery of Ben's death. Now, I told you that Ben did it himself, so there isn't really a point to the investigators being here. They are not here to find out why Ben did it. They are purely investigating whether someone here had any sort of motive or a means or an opportunity to murder him that night in that locked room. In between any of these sections of Belle and Saka investigating and interrogating, interviewing any of the people here, we also have the internal monologues from Abigail as she organizes the funeral, takes compassionate leave, returns to work, overall just kind of copes with the grief of losing Ben. Every interaction that we see between Belle and Saka and the rest of the characters here is not real at all. I don't just mean that it's a story in a novel. Within the narrative of the novel, it's not real. It's all made up. It's all inside of Abigail's mind. She is pretty much in denial about the fact that her beloved brother, who she was so close with, she's just in denial that he would have done something like that. As I read this book, it felt completely like a waste of time. For me, making this video right now, it feels like a complete waste of time to recap any of the events. Any of these details that I tell you, it's just going to muddy the water. It doesn't make sense for me to tell you about them because it doesn't amount to anything. Like any of the new pieces of information that any of these characters are going to be providing to Saka and Belle, it isn't real. It's all made up.
None of it's true. It's BS. They made it up. They lie.
It's all in Abigail's imagination. So to even say that Maggie wears her and Ben's old engagement ring on a necklace around her neck, that's not true. Because it is so self-referential, any of the meta references that are made within this book pissed me off. Okay. What I mean by that is that there will be multiple references that Belle makes or Saka makes about information that it will find out later on in this narrative, or they'll refer back to information that was provided on a specific page number within the actual physical book of my hands, right? So in chapter 1, Belle arrives at Yew Tree House and he's meeting the owner of the house who hired him, Abigail. Apparently Abigail now owns the house in her imagination, and Belle makes note of all the things in the house that he's going to, store that information in his brain that's going to store around there so that eventually around chapter 23 it'll become a solution that he'll discover. And if this was a one-off kind of meta reference, I could forgive it. I would think, oh, they just break the fourth wall, that's crazy. But unfortunately, it happens a lot. He would need to conduct an experiment later, he thought. It reminded him of a previous case of his, the Triple Petunia murders, but plots tend not to repeat themselves in his experience. This was something he would have to tease out over the coming chapters. Before we begin properly, for reference purposes only, I would like the reader to turn back a few pages and read through the fair play's rules, which you probably skipped earlier. In chapter 22, I'll conduct an experiment with the help of Cormac Stephen. He knew more than most how important it is to reveal clues gradually in order to build tension. I wasn't expecting him until at least chapter 18. And if you stick around until chapter 16, I'll soon speak with someone else. Also, my inspection of the rooms in the next chapter will show that a lot of expensive red jewelry has remained. That would have been too easy. And he didn't want to give the game away yet. It was only chapter 15. In chapter 22, we should check whether it's possible to scale the wall outside. On page 38, in the cast of characters, Margaret still wears her engagement ring hidden around her neck. We could just skip forward a couple of chapters and find the solution, right? I recall my interview with you in chapter 12. An odd feeling came over me suddenly in chapter 3. In chapter 1, I noticed an absence, a space where the shotguns were mounted on the landing of the stairs. And then in chapter 15, suddenly that space had been filled. And those are just the meta references that I was able to find by searching chapter in the ebook. There's obviously the other ones within the book as well, where characters are referencing information that's given on those specific page numbers. All of these references mean nothing, especially when Bill said that he knew more than most how important it is to reveal clues gradually in order to build tension. That line in particular made me angry. Even just reading it now, because I know that there is literally no tension in this book, and any of these supposed clues that we're being given that are being revealed gradually don't amount to anything. To add like further insult to injury, page 201 has this: a challenge to the reader. As is his custom, August Bell would now like to invite you, the reader, to ruminate on the central question of this book. Who is the murderer? At this point in the narrative, you should have everything you need to solve the crime. You should, through use of logic and deduction, be able to not merely guess, but prove the identity of the culprit. You should also be able to explain how the murder occurred, and indeed why. Good luck. Are you f***ing joking? Like I said, everything that Bell and Saka are going over before this is fake. After this challenge to the reader, the next chapter, chapter 23, is titled A Solution, followed by chapter 24, another solution, followed by chapter 25, another solution, followed by chapter 26, and another, followed by chapter 27, and another, followed by chapter 28, and then one more. Each and every solution that Bell goes over in these 6 chapters don't mean anything. Because what? It's all in Abigail's head. It's not real. Like I mentioned in part 2, aside from just getting these parts of like Saka and Bell talking and investigating and referring to other f***ing chapters where they do other stuff, we are then seeing the somber reality of Abby's life after the loss of her brother. Realistically, I feel no closer to her. I feel no sympathy for her. Listen, before Ben's death, I found Abby to be unlikable. After Ben's death, I found her to be just as unlikable. There's like a part in part 2 where she goes back to work and her mind is ruminating obsessively that my brother's dead, 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 while she's in this staff meeting. It's as if to say, like, how can these people be stressing and thinking about these reports and these figures when my brother is dead? No one in this room is acknowledging it. But then in another chapter, she reaches out to HR because she is annoyed at how cloying her co-workers are when they're like pitying her. She feels that it's just pitying when they are saying that they are giving condolences, when they have reached out. When one co-worker in particular, Clara, had tried to take her out for a coffee, and Clara had shared like, I know it's not the same, but I lost my mum 2 years ago, and you know, I still struggle with the grief. And rather than seeing that as a sign of like connection, Abby still sends off an email to HR to be like, I don't want people to be bothering me, okay? I'm sick of them bothering me and messaging me and telling me that they're sorry for my loss. I'm going through enough stress as it is. And so like 3 co-workers in particular, they like reach out personally and they just send her an email being like, hey, I'm sorry that, you know, you were made to feel that we were pitying you. We won't bring it up ever again. And she forwards those emails off to HR to be like, tell them to leave me the alone. Clara, the woman who tried to take her out for coffee, is one of the 3 co-workers that had like reached out to her directly. And Clara also then like buys her flowers and leaves them on her desk as another way of apologizing. And Abigail gets on her computer and emails HR. She sent me flowers. Tell them to leave me alone. HR then like set up this meeting with Abby and Clara. And Clara is just like, so apologetic. She's so upset. She's just trying to like apologize and explain that she was trying to like reach out and relate to Abby by sharing how she had felt when her mother had passed away. Bro, Abby is such a fucking bitch. And she's like, okay, but that was 2 years ago. As if the experience of grief is not long lasting throughout your fucking life. As if grief is a competition. In another chapter, one of her friends named Frances, she's not a part of like the friend group who's friends with Benjamin, so that's why she wasn't invited to like the murder mystery parties. That's why we didn't see her there. Frances tries to organize a birthday party for Abigail like 2 months after Ben's passing, and she says, you know, it'll be a good way for you to see everyone again. We can just have it at your house. We don't have to go out. You know, people can just come over and it'll be like a potluck kind of thing. And she's trying to be cheerful and trying to put on music for Abby and is trying to get her to dance along like to the music. She like tries pulling Abby into like a dance circle to try to get her to like loosen up, and Abby digs her nails into her wrist and scratches her. She yells at everyone else. And it's like, get out. I simply have to read it because she pissed me off. Frances is still there. What's gotten into you? She asks. I told you I wanted something quiet, Abigail says. In fact, I told you I didn't want this at all. My brother's dead. How can you be dancing in my front room when my brother's dead? Her friend is silent for a moment. I thought you would enjoy this. I thought it would be good to get your mind off things. You seemed fine, said Frances, and those final words hit her in the chest like a train. I seemed fine? Abigail repeats. I mean, says Frances, you're handling things remarkably well. I'm in awe of you. If I was in your situation, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed. I'd be crying constantly. Abigail sways a little. It took me 3 hours to get out of bed this morning, she says. And I cry all the time. I'm barely able to get through the day. Frances's face is blank. Well, I didn't know. I mean, you never said. I can't read your mind. Abigail thinks she will faint. Can't read my mind? She is incredulous. No one is asking you to read my mind. Do you have any sense at all? My brother is dead. It's been less than 2 months now. And because I seem presentable and I can walk upright, you think I'm fine? How could I possibly be fine? How will I ever be fine again? But Frances has become defensive. How am I supposed to know how you're dealing with it? You never tell me anything. Abigail has a million things she could say, but she raises her hand and just slaps her instead. Harkening back to this meeting that she had with HR and Clara, if she's saying, how will I ever be fine again? My brother is dead. How can she then be mad at Clara for bringing up the death of her mother 2 years ago? With her own logic, Clara shouldn't be fine ever again. Shut up, Abby. You're not the only person in the world. And also, I think that Frances is completely justified to say, I thought you were okay because you don't talk to me about anything. I can't read your mind. She can't know what you need. She can't know how to support you as a friend if you're not talking to her. From your own logic and the way that you had reported all of your co-workers to in HR. If she's going to get mad at her friend for not asking if she's okay, but she's going to get mad at her co-workers that keep asking if she's okay, what exactly do you want? She later then talks about going to therapy and that she doesn't really see the point of it. She doesn't really need it because she's already self-aware enough. That clearly isn't the Kate. And I could think that maybe this is a part of character growth that you would see in literary fiction. If someone's going to sit here and say I'm self-aware, but they're the worst person in the world, if at the end of that novel they become slightly better or they recognize how they treated other people, I would be able to forgive it. And I would think, that's a little bit ironic for them to say that they're self-aware. This bitch, Abigail tells us that she's self-aware enough, but there is nothing about how she is treating other people in her life, her friends, her co-workers, or anything like that. She doesn't have self-awareness. If you were self-aware, you would be able to sort of reflect on how you have been treating your friends or your co-workers or anything like that. You would be able to reflect and say, whatever they were, giving me at that point in time, it was not something that, my stage of grief was able to deal with at that point, right? You would be able to sort of recognize that, I reacted or I lashed out at you in these sort of ways because I was feeling this, and maybe apologize, or even just to recognize the fact that these people are reaching out or these people are interacting with me in this kind of way because, they don't know how to deal with their own grief and their own idea of mortality. And now, listen, I have left this pin here for a while now. I kind of forgot a little bit what the pin is. Oh, that's right. It was the Deerstalker hat that Stephen pulled out of his bag in part 1 before the party to say, this is my costume to show that I am a detective. First of all, when Abby corrects Stephen and says, well, actually, Sherlock Holmes didn't actually wear that hat in the books. He only wears it in the movies. That's a fabrication from the movies. I think that this is supposed to be the indicator that Abigail is such a fan of mystery novels. And so that is why Abigail has fabricated this reality inside of her head where her favorite mystery detective character has, come to life and been able to solve the murder of her brother's suicide. But aside from Abby making this one correction of Stephen, there isn't really any other sort of substantial things within the text to indicate that Abigail is such a fan of these novels. Even if we were going through like any of her like grieving time during her compassionate leave, it's not as if she's saying, oh, I'm just scrolling my phone, I'm listening to audiobooks from August Bell, I'm, immersing myself in these August Bell books that I'm such a fan of and I love them so much, or something like that. Maybe it could be presumed that the fact that Abigail writes these murder mystery party narratives each year that she hosts these parties, it could be assumed that she is such a big fan of murder mysteries. But if she was supposed to be such a big fan of murder mysteries and murder mysteries genres, then I feel that we should have been given more of an indication of that through the description of the party itself. They don't really tell us anything about the party. We don't get to know anything about the puzzle that Abigail had written them in the party. So really, there is no actual explanation for why I am in Abigail's imaginary world with her favorite fictional character, like within that world. Like, that doesn't make sense either. Reading this the first time, I thought it was a waste of my time and I felt that it was a 1 star. Reading this the second time, it is still a 1 star. I didn't get what I thought I was going to be getting from the blurb. I've been recording probably for like 2 hours now and I feel like I'm losing my voice. I'm very excited to edit all of this together into one itty bitty video for you to watch. If you've made it this far into the video, please give it a big old thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see me. If you have any funky book recommendations, you can let me know in the comments down below. That being said, my name is April. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for spending time with me. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.